Sponsor of this event, please welcome Dave Morgan. Dave.
Thank you. They call you a legend when you're old, so that's, let's be clear. I'm very excited to be here. Really love the Media Post events. The great group, great venues, and really getting to spend time with each other. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some points of view on TV. I hope what you get from this, I'm not going to talk much, it goes in and out here. Should I go to this one instead, or you have a different one? Okay. Thank you. So I'm not going to talk about Simulmedia. I have some colleagues here who can put their hands up, and you can find them if ask questions. I want to give you some things to think about in what's happening in TV and streaming video. And I have, if you've ever read anything I write in Media Post, I've been writing for more than 20 years for it. I'm pretty opinionated, and you're going to hear some of them. I think that right now the state of TV and streaming advertising is an absolute mess. And it's getting worse, and we need to take some steps to make it better. To the viewer, it's just TV. That's what they see. They're seeing their programming, they're seeing their networks, they're seeing the stories, the stars they like. To us, so much of our industry lives in individual little silos, and unfortunately, those silos are increasingly acronym defined, which actually means something to the people that know what those acronyms are and means nothing to the people that don't. And particularly if you're in the divide between digital and linear, you each have sets of acronyms and you know effing idea what the acronyms are that the other people are using, and you actually like to use them to exclude people from the conversation so you can show people how smart you are about the acronyms that you do. And I just learned that my company is in a new acronym that I wasn't even aware of until this last, that we are VDL, or no, DDV, data-driven video, which I had heard data-driven linear before, and which I didn't know until someone told me that I was in that marketplace, and I have no idea what I'll be in next week when I hear about it. Let's try to get a perspective on, and step back and just, there's a lot of people have perceptions on what's happening in the industry, but I'm just going to give some numbers. So this was the Super Bowl, was the most streamed Super Bowl of all time. But let's break it down. 123.7 million viewers. Now, everyone that has worked in television knows that when you have a number like this, that is the average viewing per minute for 5.5 hours. Everyone understands that's not a unique visitor number, right? Or unique viewer number. I think the unique number was over 200 billion, but means on average the entire time this many people watched it. Now, it was broken down in a number of different ways you could watch it. 112 on CBS, 2.2 on Univision, 1.2 million on Nickelodeon, 8.5 million on Paramount Plus. So yes, about 6% of the Super Bowl was streamed. The most streamed ever. So linear's not dead. Now, why was such a relatively small number? Well, obviously there's a certain amount of distribution. What's its availability? And what's the other biggest reason? What else do you think is going on in the Super Bowl that matters, and why people, if they had a choice, were watching it on broadcast, satellite, or cable and not streaming? Commercials? Delay. The best delay was 52 seconds. The average delay was 1 minute and 20 seconds. Who wants to watch the Super Bowl and know that everybody else knows who already scored the touchdown and who won the game and you don't? So we're going to continue to see that in sports for some time. The infrastructure in the United States in broadband, no matter what, is not going to be able to support real-time delivery of streaming for certainly at least 5 or 8 more years in most parts of America. But we do know that the future is being streamed, and we know that 40% of all viewing on TV today is streamed. 40. Do you know how much of the advertising time is streamed on TV? What do you think? That's a little high, but something probably in the low teens. But yes, significantly different number, and some of it depends on how you would count it. So everyone will have a different, but this is a really significant point. When people talk about 40% being streamed and they want to put 40% of their budget against streaming, there's a problem because, let's say at best it's 17% or 12% or something in the teens, there isn't as much inventory as there is people time because most of the programming still has no ads or few ads. But we are going to see significant continued growth, more streaming, but we're going to see it, as you can see on the slide to the right, you're going to start seeing it, streaming will increasingly take more budget, certainly since it can deliver more targeting and more yield, and in some cases has more attractive audiences depending on what the advertiser's looking for. There are several significant problems, though, with the way that TV is happening. Some of you have seen parts of this, but I'm going to speak to it a little bit differently, so that in case you saw me talk about fragmentation, fit, and fluency before. Really big problem, which is continuing to go, is that more people are watching more TV than they ever have before, but they're watching it in different places, different ways, different devices, on different distributors, no matter what. And so we're going to go from that old TV to 4 million people, to 104 million households, to 122 million households, and it is going to continue to fragment. Now, that doesn't mean we won't also see significant concentration, because we now have Google YouTube has surpassed Netflix as the largest streamer in America today, and so we are going to see some of the garden. So the future will not just be fragmented and will not just be cross-channel, it's also going to be cross-garden, as we see significant amounts of viewership continue to aggregate around Google, Amazon, and obviously the television networks tend to operate in pretty proprietary ways as well. And it's more complex than it's ever been, because each one of the channels breaks down in many different ways. Some more acronyms there as well, and different companies, and we're going to have different concentrations. But trying to make TV advertising work the way viewers see it and want it is still going to be problematic. How many people think that we deliver a really, really, really great ad viewing experience on streaming today? I know it's early, I should do it the opposite way. I mean, like, how many more Capital One ads can you see in one show? And we're going to see changes in the duration. No matter what the government does in Washington relative to TikTok, short-form video in TikTok is going to be around for a long time. And we're going to see, and a lot of that is being delivered on TV. And if you ask particularly youngest, the youngest people under 20, what is TV to them? Many of them it's YouTube, and many of it is short form on TV. And so we're going to have to get used to that. Just as we saw Netflix change the formats of the TV shows, we're going to see the durations change in our expectations. Fit. This is how people watch TV in January. As I said, while we see significant fragmentation, I think one thing that you should get from this slide is that in streaming, when you're buying ads or when you're placing ads, if you're not on one of those platforms to the right, which is 95% of streaming and more than 95% of the streaming ads, you're probably actually not buying on streaming TV. And one of the reasons is because the digital ad tech was never built. I'm old, so I was there in the early middle 90s when we first built ad servers, and those are the same kind of technologies that we are using with programmatic systems, which we built in the early aughts to run the connected TV ads today, and they were not built for it. They were built for a world where supply dramatically exceeds demand, so you can just pick up something off a cookie or device ID, where you could, where cookies were, where audiences were defined by cookies or identifiers. Segments were defined by web browsing, and it was not the same kind of program or distributor world. And in TV, you're dealing with a unit, an inventory unit that is finite, a person, their primary high engagement attention over a period of time. And that is fundamentally different, and we are going to see a lot of the systems change, and the way that the demand-side platforms and sell-side platforms exist today are probably not going to be working that way in a year or two, because we've already seen 80% of the inventory in CTV over the last 3 years go from real-time bidded to insertion order managed, and that's probably going to increase. And that's one of the reasons if you look at the frequency problem that I was talking about, look at this. This is like, look at these, so many of the brands, if you look at over there, are delivering so many more, and that is almost entirely because those are the programmatic buys. Those are the pure programmatic buys that are trying to find a specific identifier, and they're not looking at reach and frequency management, old TV kinds of metrics, managed with digital systems, with an expectation of what's the user care, what does the user want to get, and what does the brand really want? Massive amounts of wasted impressions. I'm showing you these slides just, as much so you can understand that this stuff can be measured. It should be measured. And one of the reasons it's not is because of fluency. Once again, all these things. I won't quiz you all on what each of these acronyms mean, but maybe at the bar later tonight we'll talk about these. What do we need to do to thrive in a converged TV world where it is fragmented, but you have to bring it together? True cross-channel planning, and it's not just cross-channel planning, it will increasingly be cross-garden planning. You are not going to get inside the YouTube platform, you're not going to get inside the Amazon platform, you're not going to get inside Netflix platform. You're going to have to be able to understand and predict how these things work and understand where their audiences are and how they're going to deliver measurement, which probably will be a bit more unified. But the planning is going to be essential. It won't just be buy it in real time, bid it off the platform. We're going to have increasing amounts of automation because the more fragmented it is, the more expensive it is to work across these companies. We're going to have to see more of that. And we're going to have increasingly dynamic outcome measurement because clearly the more that clients get involved in the process and advertisers get involved, they're going to care not just how many impressions they got, not just what people they got, they're going to care what outcomes they achieved. And we're going to need to see stuff in digital that looks truly across cross-channel like that. We're going to have to see those kinds of things that we're used to in the digital world, not just in the connected TV world. They're going to have to include the linear world because we're still going to see linear contributing half, a third, 2/3 of our impressions on any given campaign, at least for the next 5 or 7 years. And that's going to continue to be part of what we live with. Here's my email, my Twitter handle, I guess X handle, yeah. And I'm really excited to be here, looking forward to conversations, and thanks so much for your attention.